all of that's moved by barge just in 1 year, you'd have 23 million tractor trailers that you'd have to add to the highways. Now that's bumper to bumper circling the earth more than 13 times.
Hi, and welcome to Illinois Corn TV. My name is John Klemm, and I'm an Illinois farmer and Illinois Corn Board Director. Today, I talked with Paul Rohde. Paul's the Vice President of Waterways Council, and we talked about how Waterways Council works to ensure that our extensive network of rivers, locks, and dams continues to serve as the most fuel-efficient transportation mode for essential commodities. Let's jump into the interview. Hi, Paul. Thanks for being with us today. Look forward to some good discussion on the Waterways Council. Let's start out by having you explain the difference between transportation via barge, semi-truck, rail, and maybe what some of the different products that are going to correlate to those different transportations are.
Sure, I think, and John, it's nice to be with you. Thanks for having me on today. I think when you're talking about the three major modes of surface transportation, everybody's familiar with semi-trucks, right? Whether you see it being offloaded at a big box store, or you've been stuck behind many of them or in between many of them on the highway. Rail, kind of similar. Most people driving have at one time or another been impacted by a rail car passing. But not a lot of people are familiar with towboats and the barges that the towboats push. And the barges configured together make a tow, hence the name towboat. And it's all about capacity. So a single barge on average can move over 1,700, almost 1,800 tons of product. You compare that to a rail car, it's about 110 tons, and trucks are maxed out at about 25 tons. So that's a stark difference right there. Now, for much of the country with the inland waterways that we have, we've got a series of lock and dam infrastructure. And for the most part, in those locking portions of the river, your tows are going to be about 15 barges connected by a single towboat. So that comparison would be the equivalent of about 216 rail cars with 6 locomotives, or over 1,050 large semi-tractor trailers. So there's a stark contrast with respect to the capacity that barges and towboats are able to move. Now, we have limitations. Geography is probably the biggest one. And certainly in periods of low water where you might have to load barges lighter or have fewer barges in a configuration known as a tow, you're impacted by the geography there. High water has other operational challenges as well. The infrastructure that barges and towboats have to work with, 80%, more than 80% of them are past their 50-year design life. So you've got issues with that. Thankfully, we've been able to address some of those issues of operation and maintenance funding to reduce the unscheduled closures at these locks and dams, which is really disrupting to the supply chain. Rail owns, for the most part, their own tracks, or certainly the space that they operate in. Trucks operate in the same space as motorists with our highways and roads. And with barges, it's a multi-use resource, our rivers, our inland rivers. So it's not just a navigation water superhighway. It's got a lot of other purposes that the Corps of Engineers, who operates and maintains the locks and dams, have to take into account.
I think that's a good point to maybe hone in on. A lot of times we get kind of going down the path of talking about just what the needs are for these inland waterways for the transportation, but there are other uses as well. And so to make sure we have that understanding that it's got to blend all that together, provide some good forethought.
Yeah, and that provides some unique challenges that the Corps of Engineers has to account for. But the bottom line is, this infrastructure that was put in by and large through the Works Progress Administration in the 1930s, it put people to work, and it created a a water highway that could operate 24/7, 365. And if you were to take all of that that's moved by barge just in 1 year, you'd have 23 million tractor trailers that you'd have to add to the highways. Now that's bumper to bumper circling the earth more than 13 times. If you were to take the tonnage off of rivers just 1 year, again, you're looking at 5.3 million rail cars. You could connect to New York and LA back and forth again more than 20 times. So we have got to address the infrastructure and other issues. Dredging is another issue. Well, we've got to address the issues to keep our locks and dams efficient and reliable, and keep towboat and barge transportation a viable means for not just America's family farmers, but all of the products that move by barge, and all of them that every member of Americans' consumer population enjoys and relies on.
And now it's time for Just the Facts with Clay, brought to you by PCM. More than 2 passes of tillage makes up the smallest portion of these fields for each crop. So what we're saying is farmers take out that chisel trip, take out that disc pass, and our specialists are now working with farmers to figure out which 1 or 2 fields that they can make that one less trip on and get themselves back into that most profitable range.
Right. Those are incredible stats that you shared. You know what it would take to replace just 1 year of the barge traffic. And so let's use that to talk about. We're talking about locks and dams and other infrastructure on the rivers that was built back in the 20s and 30s, right? So, why is the modernization of these locks and dams so crucial for the future of the inland waterway system?
Yeah, like any infrastructure, the older it gets, the more expensive it is to maintain. And at some point, you just can't keep throwing good concrete on top of bad concrete. You need to invest in this infrastructure to keep it operational for decades to come. Now, when these were built, the design life was 50 years. And as I mentioned, 80% of the locks in the country have exceeded that design life. That doesn't mean they're going to fall into the river tomorrow, but we have seen in recent times an increase in those unscheduled closures. And so thankfully, through the advocacy of Waterways Council and our members, associations and companies that are part of our coalition, we've been able to get increased funding in the Corps' operation and maintenance budget, and that has correlated into an 80% reduction in unscheduled closures over the last decade. We've been able to get robust funding, not what we need, but more robust than in the past several decades, for construction of locks or the rehabilitation of locks. So that addresses not just the age, but the capacity issue, because bottom line is these locks were built literally for steamboat era traffic. And with the advent of diesel, they soon became obsolete as far as capacity goes. And so what towboats have to do is they're pushing these barges, again, about 15 in most cases of the locking river. They've got to go through these locks in stages, two different stages, and it's costly, it's inefficient, it's dangerous to our inland mariners, and despite that, barge transportation is still the preferred way to ship on most of the bulk commodities that move across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had some great successes, you and the Waterways Council and all these other organizations have, but you bring such a good point that the work is not done, and theoretically the work should never be done. They need that continual update versus letting them get to the point of disrepair and things that they have. So thank you for the work that you guys do on that, and we continue to look forward to what we can do, because I know as a producer myself, having that transportation avenue for my product is crucial, and I look forward to what the future of that is. So let's take a quick break from kind of the serious questions here, and let's go with a little light note. And so with that being said, not to be too corny about it, but why did the Waterway go to the psychiatrist?
Ooh, that is quite cerebral. Why did the Waterway go to the psychiatrist? I don't know. You're going to have to help me out.
It's because it had a bad case of sentimental issues to work through. Sediment, get it?
Wow.
You brought up dredging, so you led me right to it,
Nice. Yep.
Well, this has been another episode of Illinois Corn TV. Let's stay tuned for more content every week, and be sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you all next week.